February is often winter's way of saying, I may be on my way out, but I'm going to make sure you remember me. It can often be one of the coldest months of the year. My experience has been that it's okay to plant winter crops now, but they don't usually grow much until the weather warms. But since the weather might start warming up soon, or not, depending on a groundhog, you can go ahead and plant, and they'll grow during warm spells. But before you plant those winter crops, keep in mind the individual needs of each plant, and plan out your garden accordingly. Some plants are great neighbors to each other, and some, not so much. For this video, I will discuss onions, garlic, carrots, English peas, lettuce, and potatoes. If you buy garlic at the grocery store, you might see it sprouting, and your mind automatically says, plant that. Well then, I say, okay. It's better to order garlic, so you know it's good for your zone, but I've had some luck with growing garlic just from the grocery store, so it can work. Whatever garlic you get, you simply break up the cloves and plant them, pointy side up, about 1 inch in the ground, maybe 3 inches apart. My experience is that garlic can handle clay in the soil better than most root crops, but they have fairly shallow roots, so it's easy to grow them in containers if you want. They do well with a lot of organic matter and good drainage, which is true of most any plants. But they like fertilizer more than most. Planting garlic around other crops can help keep bugs away from them. They also deter rabbits and such, so you might also consider them good for the furthest most parts of your garden. I usually grow onions from slips that I could get cheaply at feed stores or Walmart or any plant store. That's the fastest and easiest. Seeds don't always have time to mature during the time the weather is just right. Like garlic, they like a lot of fertilizer and can be grown in similar conditions. Carrots don't like to move, so they should be planted where you want them to grow. Their seeds are tiny and have a low germination rate and take up to 3 weeks to sprout. So plant a lot and then thin out where it grew too thickly. I don't have very much luck at all getting carrot seeds to sprout in the ground, but do much better when I plant in pots or containers with a lot of loose potting soil. If you plant onions in with the carrots, it can help keep away the carrot flies. English peas are my favorite cool weather crop. You can eat them in or out of the pods, cooked, raw, whatever. If you soak the seeds in water overnight before planting, you can get them to grow even faster. But once you've soaked them, you need to plant them all within the next few days or they can rot. Make note of tomorrow's forecast and consider how much room you have to plant so you'll know how many to soak. Like a lot of us, green peas do better if they have support. I sometimes use cheap, lightweight welded wire on T-posts for them to grow on. Animals often just push this kind of fencing apart, but it's good enough for plants. Green peas don't need as much fertilizer as other plants. The sign they've had too much is pods that like to tease you by being nice and big, but empty. Lettuce does best with shallow roots. Keep it well watered, so it will focus more on making leaves for you to eat than roots going into the ground. But too much water will cause rot. You can sow the seeds thickly, and if too many come up in one place, you can just go ahead and eat those. With lettuce, you don't have to worry about when to harvest. They're edible as soon as they start to grow, but they don't taste as good later in the year, especially when they get all stalky. With potatoes, you might want to wait until later in February, but not too late, because they can take about 120 days to mature, and they like cool soil. Potatoes don't grow well once the temperature is above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. In moist clay-filled soil, like I have too much of, you might only harvest stinky rotten messes because the potatoes rot in the dirt. Ever notice how rotten potatoes are one of the few plants that can rival the smell of dead animals? So, if you also have too much clay in your soil, then I recommend growing potatoes in a container garden. My November gardening video is about an easiest and cheapest way to make large container gardens. When planning for the future, Consider that some plants are more likely to develop blight if you plant them with potatoes. This includes things like tomatoes, pumpkins, squash. Potatoes usually don't get along that well with their nightshade brethren. Planting potatoes with other nightshade plants increases the likelihood of bacterial and fungal diseases. Other plants you might be planting this month but should keep away from potatoes include carrots, turnips, and onions, since they can keep potatoes from growing as well. Do you have friends that help bring out the best in you? Well, potatoes do. They include cabbage, beans, horseradish, and corn. These are just a few of the things you can plant, assuming you can stand the cold.